Well, thank you for moving us to the next topic. So, the R, research and resources. As a trade association, we should be on the tip of the spear on research. And frankly, we're just not there. We'll get there. We're developing the strategy around structure, and so we have a concept called the Vault that will be launched after the first of the year. The Vault will be an enormous resource area that you can have access to. Some will be part of your membership, some will be outside the membership. But a good part of that centers on research development and information gathering and information transfer from the data to you. So Jen, why don't you, since you're doing the E and the R.
Yeah, right. Well, John, thank you for bringing up that point, because you're spot on. And I think part of what has been lacking historically for our membership is really that timely and relevant information to help you all do your jobs successfully, as I've said a number of times. And that includes primary research and secondary research. So primary research would be efforts where we hear about things going on and we want to tackle them from an association. We just finished up a big primary research project with our state association groups where we had the first gathering in Knoxville, and it surfaced that, hey, this is a spider web of making phone calls when we're trying to go down this path of establishing our state association. So it would be really helpful if, as an association, you could do a broad sweeping study to look at how these organizations are structured, how they're funded, what their membership benefits are, all those sorts of things. So we did that. We just completed that and presented it yesterday. So that'd be kind of an example of the primary research side of things. But to your point, which is really interesting as well, is there's a lot of information that is out there, and it might come in academic form, it might come in other associations or trade association forms, that is relevant to the longevity and sustainability of sport tourism as an industry segment. I mean, none too bigger than youth sport participation and specialization and officiating. Those are two that could have massive impacts on our industry. So really what we want to try to do from the research perspective, and we'll do this in a couple different ways, is be on top of those trends, right? Where we might be looking what's coming down the line as a membership in the next 6 months, 12 months, things of that nature, officiating trends, sport participation trends, facility development trends. Those are things that are long-term plays that we want to be able to monitor and start to bring to your attention. I think you'll see that. If you probably all noticed that we took a brief hiatus from the State of the Industry report, and that's really just to refine that process and what value we're providing to the membership by the content that's contained within that report. So you'll see that come back to light here after the turn of the year, just to address those types of things. That might be economics. What does the state of the economy look like? How does that trickle down and affect tourism in general and our segment of that industry? But really what Al hit on is these two areas of that we've got right now going. It would be the Vault, which is going to be this comprehensive. It's almost like if I would refer to it as a toolkit, right? It's a space where you can go find out more about the NCAA bid process, get Safe Sports certified, find topical information that's relevant to you. And then the second component of that, which is something we've already launched and we could use your support on, is this concept called the Pulse. And you see that at the top of our Get in the Game newsletters on a weekly basis. But those are, the term is micro research. I like to call them snack size research because that makes sense in my simple mind, is just really short, will take you less than 90 seconds to 2 minutes to complete. And it may seem like inconsequential, but I can tell you I go through every single one of those. I do an analysis on every single one of them, and it feeds into content we're providing, education we're providing, resources we're providing. And it really does give me and the rest of the Sports ETI team and board a pulse on what you're looking at in your destination, what trends you're seeing, what you're interested in, and where you want to be resourced. So the Vault will be coming, the Pulse. It changes every couple of weeks, so you kind of got to stay up to date. We always post an analysis on them. I invite you to check them out if you've got ideas for additional topics. We're always open to those as well, but we can be as useful as you are engaged in the association.
Yeah, the important thing is you participate. We can only give you data if you participate. We're not going to invent it. So all we ask is you take a few seconds. We do know that Get in the Game has got an 83% open rate. That's staggering. anything when we mail out 2,600 documents and 83% of the people open it and look at it, and we then track how much time they spend on it. So we know it's a good resource to reach our people. One of the things we often have heard in different times, in different ways, is more communication. Well, we communicate in that device significantly well. And so just take the time to fill out the survey. The data is being collected because we don't have a deep database of information around our markets and our people. And so this is very, very helpful, which will be extremely helpful in the long run to help you guys from a trend data.
There's a good nerd trend or nerd phrase to throw in there, and that's data out is only as good as data in, and we really mean that. So the more that you can engage with the process, the better we're able to resource you on the back
end. The corporate rule, we call it garbage in, garbage out, but she dresses it up.
I was nerdifying it a little bit.
So one of the things around the vault as a resource to you guys is going to center around partnerships. And Mike, you drew the lucky straw to work with me on the partnerships out there. So
it was a short straw, Al.
Yeah.
Is there a straw?
I think there was only one. There was only one straw in the hand, but Mike did grab for it. So talk for a minute about what does that mean? What does that mean to our members? What does it mean to our association? What does it mean to our resources? What are partnerships? What are they?
Yeah, I think simply it's one, we're still defining what that really looks like long term and how it can be more beneficial and most beneficial to our membership. But in the short time, it's getting more of our programming out there, extending our brand a little bit more, and really figuring out where it's best for us to put our resources in outside of our core events and programming that we already offer. So I think it was formally announced that we'll have a small partnership with teams right now in the North Star team, where we'll offer our education back at that conference again and have that opportunity for our members to go in as sports ETA members and get an education piece component CSE credit while you're there. But then also we're opening up to our non-sports ETA members so we can extend that brand a little bit further and bring them in. And maybe those folks that aren't partnering with us or aren't a part of what we're trying to do as an association can get a little exposure to our programming and understand what we're trying to do and maybe bring them into the fold a little bit closer. So really working with the North Star team and teams right now to develop that and bring that education in. They've been a good partner in that process and understanding that what our needs and wants are, and it's not, there's no negative for us. It's an easy reach for us to extend out there, to have that offering there, and they're really working with us to take care of a lot of the opportunities that need to be cared for when the programming actually takes place. So there's no real heavy lift on our staff or our team either, because they're going to coordinate the majority of that. We just need to provide the programming and then extend our branding a little bit. So we're looking at other areas that make sense for us to do that and extend that brand and reach and education and bring that to you. We know I travel to more than just sports ETA events. I would like to have sports ETA have a presence in a more broad sense, so we have that exposure. We're all together out there. We might as well be under the flag, as this is our trade association, and continue to extend that brand.
So North Star is who you're really dealing with. And Teams just happens to be one of the events that they run. So they're a publisher. What else do you see coming?
Well, I think that's a great opportunity for us to maybe share some of the research that we have going on, share some of the information that's going on within our association. Our team, no offense to our wonderful team and board, but we're not marketers or promoters, or we don't own a magazine to really put that out there. We have the Get in the Game, which is wonderful, but that's not the piece that we need to reach a broader audience. And the publishing side and the North Star, obviously you're all familiar with their publications, but long term, there's some opportunity for us to really partner with them and have what we're doing extend out into that publication, maybe even some other avenues as well. They don't just own just that publication, but maybe there's an opportunity for us to extend that a little bit. Share some of the work that Dr. Stoll is working on, some of the information coming out maybe from the state groups, and really just kind of extend that a little bit further.
So 2 partnerships we talked about today, one with Safe Sport and one with North Star. There's a number still in the works, so expect either before or after the first year, a number of additional relationships. And part of the relationship expansion is really to drive focus in our organization. We are going to focus on these 4 pillars. I hear from many of you on areas and things that affect outside this, the scope of what we're talking about. And we're going to try and help where we can, but our main focus is going to be around these 4 areas. So we are not experts in publishing. we're not experts in certain fields, so we're going to keep our knitting close to home, and we'll work on things we're good at. And if we feel we need to expand the relationship in order to provide a better product to you through a resource like publishing, for example, or in Jennifer's case, we're talking right now, finalizing an agreement with 3 different major national research firms to provide more important, more relevant information to you. So if you have thoughts, feel free to drop me a note, give me a call, I'll respond back, or any of us. So any questions on what we covered on the vault or resources?
I do.
I thought so.
I'd like to kind of go back a little bit too. I'll stand up.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I've noticed. I think that the way that we're moving is great within the four pillars that we're doing. One of the things I would like to see a little bit more of kind of incorporates each one of these. I will have to disagree with you, Al, in the fact that I don't think that the traditional CBBs, CBB presidents really do understand sports. I think ultimately they're telling you that they do at DI, they're telling you this, because if they really did, they would give us more resources. And
I don't disagree with you at all, believe me. So we're on the same page.
so good.
Yeah.
So I think that, if I had as much money as convention sales did, I'd be blowing it even more out of the water.
Yeah.
And I think that, all these pillars, whether it's education, advocacy, resource, research and resources, I think we need to also look at those and how we bring them out to the other markets,
Yeah.
and umbrella them extremely hard hitting. Because the way that I see it is if we can take our information and give it to them and really have them understand, I hate to say the value of sports because I think we say that too much, but maybe the impact of sports
Yeah,
and what it
yeah.
has on our organizations, they can really come to understand more and not just give us the pittance of money or the pittance of resources in our organizations and our cities, but really understand that we're 40% or 50% or 60% of not only the room nights, which is a metric that I don't particularly care for,
Yeah, great. Yeah.
but of the economic impact of what we're bringing to them. So I love all of this, and I love the 4 pillars, but I think we need to broaden that, and I think that everyone's nodding their head. So I think that's obviously been taken into consideration, but we really need to sprinkle it across, everything, because what we do is so important. If we all went away and we said, you know what, I'm sick of this, I'm not dealing with this anymore, numbers would go down, money would go down, resources would go down, your PR value would go down, and then all of a sudden everyone would be up in arms. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit more of how we can
Sure.
get everybody.
Go ahead, Mike, and I'll have a long soliloquy around that.
And I can talk about that forever too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's great.
So I
Great question. Great segue. We're in alignment, so there's no disagreement.
Yeah.
Just to clear that up.
I want more money.
Yeah, so
We'll get
we
there.
all want more money.
She
Yeah.
said.
We'll get there.
I think that's part of exactly what we need to do. So that is part of the long-term strategy is releasing more of that information out. And the partnership with DI will allow us to do that. We can extend that brand out there where some of those.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
MPI.
But what we need to do is we need to get that information first that proves our case and shows what is out there. We need more research. We need more education. We need more of that so that we can then share that broader message to that group. Because you're absolutely spot on. I think there's not a board meeting that doesn't go by where we have this exact same conversation about more resources and helping us expand we're relevant, but we need to state the case of how relevant we really are and help people understand that and realize that. Because we are an undervalued segment. I think I mentioned that earlier. I am in full alignment with you there. But I think we need to build out our resources more so that we can have more of that messaging out there and have some broader reach with those partnerships too.
So there's a number of initiatives around that, and Kristen's going to rue the day she sat in this meeting because, look, I'll just be candid with you all. Many of you are part of CVBs, and each year you go into a meeting and they sprinkle some dollars down to you and they say, atta girl, atta boy, go get them. And you go away and you produce room nights, and in most cases you beat your room nights. I was recently speaking in Buffalo, and Pat Kaler, who's the CVB president, told me, 80% of our tourism lift last year was sports. So I went out, they toured me around the city, and I went out to the ice rink out there by University of Buffalo, and they have 6 sheets of ice. So I'm talking to the fellow that's running it, and I said, hey, this is pretty cool. You got the Paralympics here. You got these six sheets of ice. You got this little arena over here. Give me the economics. He said, well, it's a great question. This is our first weekend this year. Cool. How many teams do you have? We have 650 teams coming in. How much does it cost to enter? $1,700. So I was a math major. I'm going, holy crap, that's a lot of money. And quick calculation, you know. And so he says, we're booked like this till April. And that's why 80% of Buffalo's lift, most of it is ice hockey, right, Pete? Where are you? Wherever Pete is. Yeah. Just say yes, Pete. So this is not an uncommon discussion. So I'm not fooled by the fact that I speak at the Destination CEO meeting and they all love me and they love sports because they're meeting one of their pillars. Keep in mind, this was a sales arm in CVBs like the medical or religious. So this is a process to get there. So I'm not naive enough to believe that they believe me, but there's proof that's coming, and we're beginning to move the needle. Now, I got to tell you guys, you got to get at the table when the budgets are laid down. You have to get at the table and sit there because that's part of the process. And then I believe the Christians of the world will understand and will make the right kind of investment. Yeah, go ahead.
So two things on that. One is when you're talking about the budget, yes, it is a smaller budget, but you do have to remember that there's also the infrastructure that a CBB holistically brings. Whether it be, John would be the first person to tell you that our marketing department,
Sure.
really
Yep.
supports what he's doing, as
Yeah.
does our administrative department. But the second point is what a good CBB should and will do is provide a pathway for your sports business to grow. And that's what we're working on here in Providence. We recognize the value of the work that John and Jonathan are bringing. So what we're doing right now is we're like, this is our growth market. This is our market of opportunity. How do we take that and provide and start looking at how are we going to grow that business 4, 5, 10 years out? So I think if you work with your CVB CEO and kind of go in that direction, then the money comes because you're building new facilities. We have 3 hotels that just opened. We have another 5 in development just in Providence. So the work that John does is pivotal to that growth. So the thing that we need to do is give him that opportunity.
Yeah, and there's some tangential things that are going on around the country. These facilities are cropping up like weeds across America, right? They're everywhere now. And that's why we decided to form a sports facilities group, because they need the same things that you guys need. They need education, they need networking events, they need research, they need resources. So we are going to form a sub-association. We already formed it around sports facilities. Well, we have our research, wherever Gustavo is, we have over 4,500 facilities out there. That's a lot bigger than destinations for us, so we're going to capitalize on that, but they fit closely, and this is part of the discussion is how does the capital get deployed within the CVB? And then the other part of it is what's the definition of success? So we've been advocating as we've gone out there, and I'll give one market as an example. Cleveland does a terrific job on something called resident sentiment studies, of which we're engaging with some work with them. And, Dave Gilbert and I have talked for years about what they do to justify success. And they're not just a heads and beds. Heads and beds satisfies the financial answer to the hotel motel tax. So in a lot of cases, that's a necessity. But the other part of the coin is what do the residents care about what you do? And who cares about the residents caring? Your mayor and all the politicians, your community leaders, your businesses. When they're considering moving their business or hiring an employee, they want to know what kind of activities they got for their families. So we are engaging that the definition of success is this which is normal around heads and beds and some financial consideration around economic impact. But the second is the resident sentiment. So a great study being done in Cleveland right now is what is the resident sentiment for the Major League Baseball All-Star Game? And the $2 million that the MLB left in Cleveland that's going to inner city youth and activities, what's the impact on that from a job creation standpoint and long-term? So we're going to do a longitudinal study with them about resident sentiment. So I would encourage you to think broadly about your definition of success. So that's a snippet, but we could talk about this topic all day long.
I love the part we want more money, but I also want to spend less. Is there any talk about sports ETA going to North Star, going to the other conventions and conferences that we all have to pay to go to and say, okay, if you're a sports ETA member, you get $100 knocked off.
Are you sitting in our meetings?
Or
Well, let's not get carried away. Listen, commas are tough to get, just so you know. Commas are difficult.
They want our people, they need to give our organization.
Yeah, so we can't talk too much about it, but Carrie, that is one of the driving elements of our conversations with these groups is it's our belief that you guys probably spend more on travel to all these events than you do actually within our organizations. We know our membership is a low-level entry point, $795. When we had the state association meeting and their average is $1,500, I'm going, holy cow, we are underpriced. But it's all value proposition, and that's not my point. My point is really that, yes, that is part of what we're looking at with these partnerships is how do we align ourselves, and can we eliminate some meetings, and is there common ground and alignment to do that in consideration of what you guys have to pay and what you have to do? And we believe the answer is yes. We're just not quite there yet. But we are deep in conversations with a number of groups without anything specific. So that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked because that is a cornerstone to our partnership. Same thing exists with DI. You know, we're talking about discounts with it. And so and part of, to Sue's point, part of what we're doing in the industry is we're educating non-members too, because they need to understand what we do, but in this value chain of sports events and tourism. So one more question, and I think we've got to wrap it up. We got a break. Pete, yeah.
I don't have a question. I'm just going to do a 30-second commercial.
There we go.
Kansas City, we're doing a 50-50 raffle that money will end up going to the charity we choose in Kansas City. We just talked about the All-Star Game leaving a legacy. We want to leave a legacy in Kansas City. Mike is selling tickets. Jennifer Rothman is selling tickets. If you don't know what sports legacy is, please ask myself, Marissa, Angel, Mike. It's an opportunity for us to leave a legacy in Kansas City for symposium.
Yeah, just so you know, we were advised that Rhode Island is one of these states you can't sell raffle tickets, but Gibbons said he knows a guy, so I guess we're okay there. Listen, I know this was quick. We have a lot more we could cover, but I'm really thankful that we had the opportunity to share in a conversational format to you guys. Please feel free to contact any of us, write in, thoughts, questions. I tend to get back within 24 hours. But please support your organization, participate. Let's keep making it better as a group. And thanks so much for coming. Have a great rest of the conference. Thanks a lot.